welcome along. On the show this evening, Jackie Oatley will join us as England swat aside Sweden and march into a Euros final. 10 million plus watching. Does feel like a watershed moment for the women's game in England. So Jackie Oatley is with us this hour. Mike Casey is an All-Ireland winner once again with Limerick. He missed the last 2 seasons due to injury, but he was very much back this year. So we'll chat to Mike about the long road to All-Ireland glory once again. And Barcelona are indulging in all kinds of chicanery to land the likes of Aubameyang and Lewandowski. Kieran Canning covers Spanish football for the AFP News Agency, is going to join us. 53106 text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Ronan Mullen in studio. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
We meet again, Ronan.
I know it's been too long, Joe.
Away on secondment, elsewhere in the building, and now you're back with us.
Yeah, back covering the old hard news side of things, but now back chatting about Rafinha and the Barcelona boys.
Well, Declan Lynch would make a strong argument that the back pages are really the front pages for most people, you know.
That would always be my inclination as well.
Yeah, so Ron Mullen here in studio. Richie McCormack, good evening.
Ben, how are you?
That makes you like Trevor McDonald, I suppose.
I'll take it.
So Jackie Oatley going to join us 7:30. There were 10 million plus, and that's excluding streaming platforms and fan parks watching England swat aside Sweden last night. I mean, you're not really meant to beat Sweden 4-0. So we're going to talk to Jackie Oatley this hour, and it seemed like a very emotional BBC and a very emotional England, and even Ian Wright went viral with his comments post-match, which caught the eye. We'll mention this to Jackie here. Was Ian Wright at full time?
Whatever happens in the final now, if girls are not allowed to play football just like the boys can in their PE after this tournament, then what are we doing? We've got to make sure that they are able to play and get the opportunity to do this, because this is going to inspire a lot of people. But if there's no legacy to this, like what we saw with the Olympics, if there's no legacy after this, then what are we doing? Because girls should be able to play, because this is as proud as I've ever felt of any England side. This is what it's about.
So just looking into what Wright was talking about, it does seem that 37% of girls are not offered football in PE at school. It's a significant problem in English schools. I don't know to what extent it's an issue here. So there's plans, or there's an aim to cut that to 25% by 2024. It seems hockey and netball, the traditional female sports, are offered very much instead, and there's actually no offering of football. So that's what Ian Wright was talking about last night, and that got huge support as well. So England in a final, France or Germany will join them this evening. We'll talk to Jackie Oatley. It does feel like watershed moments when 10 million plus are watching the games, and they've had great viewing figures all the way through, and that points to more than just being a free-to-air phenomenon.
Yeah, and the parallel with 10 years ago, London 2012, is an interesting one, because the legacy of that has only really been borne out in recent years, and probably again only see the knock-on effects of what the England team have done here. But that's the kind of stat, or the kind of comment Ian Wright made, which would have passed most people by. I think that that's not readily available, and football would never have struck me as a cost prohibitive sport. So I would have got the impression that it would have been very accessible. Unlike, like, I know there's a line of demarcation in fee-paying schools versus public schools with regards to certain sports, where just by dint of the practice themselves and kits and, you know, what's required to play them, that they might only exist in certain spheres of society, shall we say. But like football, like, you can play football anywhere at any time. So I hope this is a turning point in that regard.
To put the viewing figures into context, so 10 million plus fan parks and streaming platforms last night on the BBC. In 2009, England reached the Euros final. They were beaten by Germany. I mean, it could be a case of history repeating itself, we shall see. The viewing figures for BBC One for the Euro 2009 final, 1.4 million. And now here we are at 10 million for a semi-final. So it does.
The game in the last decade, though, has made an incredible leap.
Yeah.
It really has, not just in terms of the viewing figures, but just in terms of the product that's put forward and the organisation around it, and the fact that there is a Women's Super League in England, and the fact that we have the Women's National League here, and like even this evening, like the FAI have just announced that the Finland World Cup qualifier in Tata Stadium is sold out, like 6 weeks is it in advance of that game, which is just astonishing to think that there could be 7,000 people selling out a game here, a women's international game here. It's brilliant, and the product has improved, tenfold in that decade plus. The amount of organisation, like, you only have to look at the England performance last night to see the fruit of that. Like, they're incredibly well drilled, very well organised, damn skillful team, and probably on a level that's far above, as to say, what we'd seen perhaps in 2009, or even I saw the celebrations of the USA's World Cup victory in '99, which is, I guess, the last real watershed moment in women's football, or perhaps the first. But this, like, it's incredible, and it's brilliant, and it's encouraging, and like Wright said, it's brilliant that he came out with something like that at a moment like that was at the forefront of his mind, and that the avenues, not just to football, but to whatever sports young girls want to play, are open to them in whatever country it happens to be, because as we know, unfortunately, it's not always the case.
Bring back Phil Neville, he didn't say afterwards.
Jesus, can you imagine?
Do you remember the introspection after his departure, and like people of some renown basically dismissing his tenure as what a waste of time that was, and it's going to take us 10 years to rebuild from his 5 years? They seem to have gotten it together quite quickly, as it turns out.
Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't as terrible as some say. I mean, he did get them to 4th in a World Cup, but there was just something very small about hiring a coach with zero experience to take the national team because he was famous for men's football, so he can take the women's job. But look, the call of, and the tradition more so than anything, of Inter Miami was just too much for Phil.
He had to go.
Say no to. So Mike Casey on the way, Limerick defender, Na Piarsaigh defender, and All-Ireland winner after 2 years of injury. I mean, to miss one All-Ireland is tough. To miss 2 in a row is very tough. So he's back with us now. We reached out to Shane Dowling to ask for any info about Mike or interesting questions we could put to him, and Shane was good enough to share some important details with us. He said Mike was voted the worst golfer in Na Piarsaigh. He's the king of the shanks, so we'll certainly put that to Mike Casey amongst other things. It's hard to imagine a hurler being bad at golf.
Yeah, I was trying to explain hurling to someone who's not familiar with it, someone not from Ireland obviously, and like the skills it encompasses, namely hand-eye coordination, like you would think would apply especially to golf. But the fact that I suppose it's a high bar within a hurling club, someone has to be the worst, Joe. It just turns out it's Mike Casey.
Maybe he's playing off like 7 and they're all mortified for him. We are going to talk to Kieran Canning about Barcelona as well. So from being completely broke to reaching out for Lewandowski and taking a bit of Aubameyang and throwing the cash around, it does seem like they've managed to engineer some kind of financial chicanery here. Kieran Canning is going to explain. You've been looking into this story. How are they managing all this?
So it's like Billy Bean, Brad Pitt's character in Moneyball, will be tearing his hair out, Joe. It's like, what?
Beautiful hair.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on here? Because they have a little bit of money to play with, but they seem to be squandering it in the worst possible avenues. Like they're betting the house on Robert Lewandowski and Aubameyang rolling back the years.
I don't mind Lewandowski so much.
Yeah, but he's 34, and like he started up front with Aubameyang yesterday.
Right.
So I was thinking there might be some sort of, they might interchange in the starting 11, which might prove to be the case in the games that actually matter.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the squad building, and Xavi seems to be getting rave reviews in terms of his people skills and tactically astute, but they're giving him these cogs to try and make some sort of machine out of, and even the best manager might struggle. But essentially they've signed a new TV deal which has given them a quick influx of cash.
Right.
But it's not a long-term guarantee. This isn't money that's going to be coming in season on season. So they're looking for a quick fix, and that's exactly what they're going for with the profile of players. There's no sign of young up-and-comers. They've gone for Rafinha, who's in his prime. They've gone for Lewandowski, obviously, Christensen from Chelsea. They want Azpilicueta as well. And they've also signed some good players, like Koundé from Sevilla is on the way, like another player in his prime. But then they're also probably looking from the perspective of Gavi and Pedri, their 2 midfield dynamos, possibly generational talents as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the Frankie de Jong thing factors in, where they're looking at him and thinking, we don't really need you, and you're taking up way too much in the wage bill.
In effect, it seems they've sold about 25% of future TV deals to generate the cash now.
Yeah, so they've done that, but they've gotten all the money up front essentially, and they've just blown it all. So Joan Laporte is like, here, I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
He really is. Oh dear. I mean, I do feel like there'll be a movie with Steve Carell about all this in about 10 years' time. So we should get moving, Richie. The Newsround as ever, with thanks to Gillette Labs, putting your best face forward. We're starting with Euro 2022 this evening. England await.
Yeah, a place in the final of Women's Euro 2022 alongside England awaits tonight's semi-final winners at Stadium MK. France take on Germany there. Kickoff is at 8. England, as we know, booked their place at Wembley by thrashing Sweden 4-0 at Bramall Lane. The hosts only led by a 1-0 at the break, but Lucy Bronze's goal 3 minutes after the restart kick-started England's dominance of that game. Head coach Serena Wiegmann was asked afterwards what she told her players at half-time.
They had their organisation, and we needed to get out of their first press better with some choices we needed to do in our shape, and we also need to be really tighter on the ball. We lost passes that we shouldn't lose, and then we played them in their strengths. That's basically what we said. So we're talking about organisation, making better choices, and being tighter on the ball.
We'll talk to Jackie Oatley 7:30 texting. Did you know that Mike and Peter Casey are originally from Clare? No, I did not. I did not know. Clare's lost, Limerick's gain and all that. I do know that Sunday was the first time they both were on the pitch at the full-time whistle in an All-Ireland final, which must have been a very cool moment for brothers, but I did not know they were both from Clare. So Mick has added in, they grew up on the Clare side of the border in Malik, which is near to Napirshik. So there you go. What could have been for Clare, I suppose. So that's England and the Euros this evening. Meanwhile, Women's National League here at home.
Yeah, Shelbourne can open up a 10-point lead at the top of the table tonight if they beat Dublin rivals Bohemians at Talca Park. Kick-off there at 7:45. And Linfield have endured a miserable evening in Norway en route out of the Champions League. They were thrashed 8-0 by Bodo Glimt and had Kirk Miller sent off in the first half. They lost 8-1 on aggregate, and they will play the losers of the Zurich Karabag tie, which is currently ongoing. Zurich a goal to the good in Switzerland tonight, and it's now 3-3 in aggregate. So the losers of that one will play Linfield next week in those Europa League qualifiers.
Manchester United have splashed out €58 million.
They have indeed. Lisandro Martínez has followed Erik ten Hag from Ajax to Manchester United. The Argentina international defender signed a 5-year deal at Old Trafford, with United paying the Dutch Giants €67 million. Martínez, United's third signing of the summer, following the arrivals, of course, of Christian Eriksen and Terrell Malacia.
An Argentinian at Old Trafford. Is he the first in Gabriel Heitze? Oh, Di Maria was there.
Yeah, let's just say I'd say he's more in the profile of Heinze than he is of Di Maria.
Much talk about Martinez's height. How small is he?
He's 5'9", which puts him in sort of a rarefied air of like comparisons with Baresi and Cannavaro and these kinds of people who are obviously playing in world-leading teams. Joe, I think Martinez is going to find himself in possibly not as firm a defensive unit when he arrives at Old Trafford, but
he must be the shortest centre-half.
He's the shortest centre-half in the Premier League.
Oh.
In a physically robust league as well, so you just know, like, the first Monday Night Football post-match analysis, because United play Brighton first up, and you just know set pieces. Brighton are going to be like, look at this guy. So Danny Welbeck, you go and stand over on him there, and we'll see what happens. But
I don't defenders choose who they mark?
It depends.
You can't go and mark a defender, can you?
Well, you can go and stand on whoever you want at a set piece, like.
Yeah, but then, like, I don't know.
It's like when
Harry Maguire will step in between them
when they pin the goalkeeper on the line, like, yeah. I suppose. But like, I'm obviously being a little bit facetious because he's like a top ball player, and that's essentially what Ten Hag. The best way to defend is to keep the ball, and they want to play out from the back, and he's left-footed, so he's going to play on that side of the defence, you would think, which means they've got Harry Maguire, obviously still club captain. Raphael Varane is a World Cup winner, just probably never fit. Victor Lindelof has played all the pre-season games. Eric Bailly apparently is wanted by Jose Mourinho at Roma. Phil Jones is still there. Tuanzebe is still there. So, like, history's repeating itself a bit with Manchester United, where they can't really get the outgoings right. They've sold Andres Pereira, but they've like a 30-man senior squad there. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. What's your take on the Ronaldo situation?
Well, when he arrived, I wasn't so down on the signing. Excuse me. I wasn't so down on the signing when he first arrived at the club. First arrived for the second time. I thought, like, I'd seen enough in what Solskjaer was trying to do that they possibly just needed someone finishing up front. But, like, he did have sort of a destructive effect on any sort of fluency that was in the team, and there was other mitigation there as well. It wasn't solely on Ronaldo, but you see what Ten Hag is trying to deploy in terms of personnel in the pre-season, and Ronaldo just doesn't fit this sort of frenetic, high-paced system. So, like, Ten Hag's saying the right things in that he's going to be the fulcrum of our attack, and I have big plans for him, but to what extent he's just trying to maintain some sort of transfer value for Ronaldo when, you know, having been canvassing all of Europe, himself and George Mendes, and nobody putting their hands up.
No.
There doesn't seem to be any transfer value at all. So it doesn't seem to suit either party, but the likelihood is he's going to stay for another year anyway.
Rich, I'm not shocked by the next story. This was always liable to happen, I suppose, given events in the UK.
Yeah, a number of former rugby players are taking action against the IRFU amid claims they suffered brain injuries during their careers. The move follows the news that England World Cup winner Steve Thompson and former Wales captain Ryan Jones are among those to have opened legal proceedings against World Rugby, the English RFU and the WRU. The names and indeed number of Irish players involved in this separate case have not been disclosed by their Dublin-based solicitors, Maguire and McClaffey.
Yeah, I'm not sure how quickly all this plays out or when we get or hear of the names or the numbers involved. And as Richie says, the Dublin-based solicitors were not revealing those names today, but certainly a story which catches the eye for sure. Like I said, not a shock, I suppose, that given what was happening in the UK, it's happened here. So of big significance, obviously. We'll bring you news as we get it on it. Colin O'Rourke, meanwhile, has been talking about his new appointment.
Yeah, he was speaking to the Meath Chronicle last night, said it was now or never for him to take the Meath job. The two-time All-Ireland winner with the Royals was ratified for a 3-year term last night, and a review will follow at the end of that second year. O'Rourke's former Meath teammate Bernard Flynn had also been in the running for the job, and he said he was disappointed to find out on social media that he had not been successful. Flynn also deleted a tweet thanking Kilmacud Crokes manager Robbie Brennan and ex-Mayo boss Stephen Rochford, seemingly alluding to them being part of a proposed management ticket.
Thoughts on O'Rourke?
I was as surprised as anybody, I think, when I saw it.
Yeah.
I was... it's just like the notion that the oldest inter-county appointment of all time, like you'd never want to be the most anything is a phrase I've heard, and you know, coming in like on that notion, I think it's going to be tricky for him. He comes in with a huge profile, but to what extent he can dine out on that with this current group, I'm not sure.
Liam Hayes was on Monday's show, and he's very supportive of O'Rourke and has a long-standing relationship.
Well, Liam Hayes had me thinking they're going to win the All-Ireland job.
Then at the end of it, he did say, well, I'm not so sure he has the talent.
This is it. Well, I don't know about talent, but like it would be, having spent the last 30 years, like we're talking inter-county terms, obviously, because he's done like good work at club level and at schools level and at international level for what that's worth. But like to have stepped out of that sphere for so long and to be stepping back into it when the game has moved on so much in the last 10 years, let alone 30 years, it's a tricky one. What they probably do need is somebody, and Liam Hayes was alluding to this, that like a figurehead that the county can rally around, and he's arguably best fit for that possible. And we've seen elsewhere, like at the top of the hurling and football championships, where often you need a figurehead of that ilk and get the right personnel around him, and that's what Meath will be hoping to do. Because what is certain is this is a critical appointment. They're at such an interesting juncture where I don't want to say Dublin are regressing in the sense that they're still streets ahead of the rest of Leinster, but this is the time where the likes of Meath or Kildare can capitalise and close that gap. But on the flip side, if they get it wrong, they're just going to be in the wilderness possibly forevermore. So
possibly forevermore.
Yeah, well, forevermore in relative terms to where we're at now, because Dublin, the juggernaut that is, if it's gone off the tracks for the last couple of seasons, that won't be a long-lasting thing, I don't think.
No, it's going to be interesting. And I'd say O'Rourke will conduct a very polished video analysis session. Put on a certain tie, sit up there. Let me just show you where it all went wrong. We'll try and get Colin O'Rourke on the show. Obviously, very interesting to chat to him over the next couple of weeks for sure. Meanwhile, Shamrock Rovers.
God, yeah, it's a busy day in the transfer front here at home. Shamrock Rovers have signed former Republic of Ireland under-21 international Simon Power. The midfielder moved from UCD to Norwich back in 2018, was sent out on a number of loans before joining Harrogate Town 18 months ago. His arrival comes in time for Rovers' Europa League qualifier against Shkupi next week. The Hoops beat 10-man Ludogorets 2-1 at Tallaght Stadium last night, but they went down 4-2 on aggregate. Speaking to our own Stephen Doyle after the game, manager Stephen Bradley was left to rue a number of missed chances.
Yeah, it was frustrating because, like you said, we started so well. We had them on the back foot. If another one of them goes in, it's a totally different game. We can relax and wait for the third to come. But like I said, it wasn't to be. And I still go back to that beat decision with the referee. And these games, you need them decisions to go for you. And for me, the refs made a incredible decision. He said Richie's dived when he's in on goal, which is unbelievable, you know.
Were you surprised because he was giving out a lot of cards in the game? You would have thought that something like that he would have picked up on.
Yeah, well, the fourth official is telling us that was a foul on Richie, and then we look out and the ref was pointing the other way, like, you know. So it looked like the officials were really confused on it as well. Yeah, and you'd have to really question that decision from the referee.
I didn't see that decision. Stephen was at the game. Ultimately, though, bigger picture, if Shamrock Rovers have been honest with themselves, conceding that third in the first leg and not taking the many chances they created last night, they're the real issues, and ultimately they're the reasons that they hadn't progressed when they really could have, because it was a very good performance last night, but they didn't take their chances ultimately. Meanwhile, Dundalk.
Yeah, busy day of transfer activity there too, specifically where Alfie Lewis is set to be reunited with his former St. Pat's boss, Stephen O'Donnell. The Lily Whites have already signed Norwegian winger Runar Hauge on loan from Hibernian and midfielder Robbie McCourt from Sligo Rovers. Their arrivals follow the return to Dundee United of Mark Connolly after a successful loan spell at Oriel Park. He'd won Player of the Month there for June. And Bohemians in the past hour as well have announced their 8th signing of the summer window. They signed James Clark, the midfielder from Drogheda United, while Derry midfielder Evan McLaughlin has signed a new contract there, but he'll head out on loan in the meantime to Coleraine to get some game time.
Republic of Ireland underage player on the move.
Yeah, very promising one too. The Republic of Ireland under-21 fullback Tayo Adarmola has joined Coventry City on loan for the season. The 18-year-old was given his senior Crystal Palace debut by Patrick Vieira in their FA Cup tie with Hartlepool last season, and he then started in the next round against Stoke City.
Racing then, Rich?
Yeah, a surprise winner of the Galway Plate today, the feature on day 3 of the Galway Festival. 16-1 shot Hewick beat the Joseph O'Brien trained Daraso to victory by half a length. Willie Mullins' 9-2 favourite El Barra could only manage third. Hewick apparently only bought for €800. And there were no surprises in the Sussex Stakes, the feature on day 2 of Glorious Goodwood. Odds-on favourite Baid beat Modern Games by almost 2 lengths to stretch his unbeaten run to an incredible 9 races.
Bit of rugby.
Yeah, former Ireland international Quinn Roux has linked up with ex-Munster head coach Johan van Graan at Bath. The Lock has joined the Premiership club as injury cover from Toulon following a knee injury sustained while on England duty by Charlie Ewells.
And Frank Lampard finally has made a signing.
He's made a couple of them. None of them particularly spectacular. Everton have signed Portuguese fullback Ruben Vinagre on a season-long loan from Sporting. The 23-year-old returns to the Premier League, having previously played for Wolves there. He's the club's second addition of the summer, following the arrival of fellow defender James Tarkowski. Everton are also reportedly in talks to sign Tarkowski's former Burnley teammate Dwight McNeil, a figure of in and around 20 million being spoken of there.
I don't know, Ronan, did you hear Lampard over the last week or so on pre-season when they lost a game quite badly? He was quick enough again to go for the players publicly.
Yeah, he's like, I love it. I just love that interview, Joe. I watched it a few times. He says something like, I know it's only pre-season, and then goes on to lambast him for 3 further minutes. Yeah. Like the first half wasn't good enough, second half was even worse. You know, this kind of thing. I don't know. Is he cut out for management? I just don't think he doesn't have the thick skin required. Well, you have to be real here. Like, you're in it's one of the most esteemed clubs in English football. Like, when they go on a bad run, you're going to get criticised, and you can't just always... Like, it was actually one of the things that was levelled at Stephen Gerrard when he was first at Rangers, that he was too critical of the players, and to his credit, he's amended that approach. Like, whatever's said behind closed doors, he's certainly not as publicly eviscerating them, whereas Lampard just goes for it.
I did see a quote from someone, I can't remember who, obviously a colleague or teammate of Lampard, saying he really has the temperament for management. I thought that's precisely the thing he doesn't seem to have.
Yeah, Paul Clement was the one who came out with that. Yeah,
because even during the season, towards the end, when Everton had an especially bad result, he went to town on them, and that was where he talked about them not having the balls, to use his phraseology, and really went for them, and then reined it back in for a couple of weeks after that. Because I think the general observation was, well, he's gone too far here, and it's a real sign of trouble when a manager is destroying his players publicly, like questioning their manhood publicly, and he reined it back in. And I thought, okay, lesson learned. Fast forward to a pre-season defeat, and he's gone for them again. I'm like, Frank,
they're a shambles of a club though at the minute, Joe. Like they look at who they're buying. They bought in Tarkowski on a free. They're going for Dwight McNeil at Burnley, and they're after getting Ruben Vinagre on loan from Sporting. Like, the removal of Alicia Usmanov's money there has been key in what's happened or not happened, I suppose, over the summer. And like, are they improving on a squad that finished pretty close to relegation last year? You'd suggest they probably haven't to a great degree. And like, I'm not going to count pre-season results at all. Like, they're training matches, but like, you look at that squad and what they've added, and like, I can't see much improvement coming in towards what we saw towards the end of last season. It's just, and it's not going to pick up until there's a sale to somebody with deep pockets there, and that's not going to be forthcoming anytime soon.
Well, in his defence, he was trying to make that point as well, as publicly as you can make it. He talked about, needing to sort out a few things at the club, and we've got to get players in, because all we've done really is lost
Richarlison.
Richie, I think he called him. All we've done really is lost Richarlison, haven't replaced him. And so, you know, he was kind of saying, I'm not a miracle worker either. But it's a touch self-serving, but he's not wrong either.
Yeah, they had that brief window where they were really splashing the cash, and the recruitment again was just all wrong. Like almost none of that crop of players are actually still there.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate from his perspective. The whole Lampard, his disintegration of his public profile has been quite interesting, because he came into Chelsea with a lot of goodwill. They were in under the transfer embargo, and he was selling his candidacy on the basis I'm going to bring all the young lads through. And look at Mason Mount, who starts week in, week out. That possibly wouldn't have happened if were it not for Lampard. Similarly, he gave Tammy Abraham his head at Chelsea. He was banging them in for Roma last season. So it is the latter point. It is the fact that he seems to take no accountability for when things go wrong, and that is where he seems to have lost that credibility, I think.
Yeah, his Chelsea job looked okay until Tuchel arrived and did his thing. And then you now listen back to some of the interviews he did at Chelsea where he said, like, we just got to run more. You're like, well, that's obviously not the problem. You know, come on. Any last story you want to bring us, Rich?
Do you know what, Joe? Breaking news from the world of golf. We should almost have a live golf siren or
Charles
klaxon
Barkley?
or something at this stage. It's not. That could be en route yet, Ronan. That could be en route. But the former Masters champion Bubba Watson is going to be the latest defector to the Saudi-funded Live Golf Series. So Big Bubba is on his way to big Saudi money.
I mean, you haven't blown me away there, I have to be honest.
I'm shocked.
I'm not sure we want to send the klaxon for that.
Who else are we going to get at this stage? That's the depths we're plundering.
I thought you were going to say Hideki Matsuyama. When you said, as soon as you said former Masters champion, he seems to be very much rumoured to have been signed up, locked down, Asian market, former Masters champion. They're going after former Masters champions just so they reach a point of critical mass where the Masters can't ban the former champions. And then in effect,
it's a good tactic.
Yeah, like by hook or by crook, the majors are all populated by live golf players as well. So yeah, I thought you were going to say Matsuyama. Bubba Watson, yeah, I mean, he fits the profile.
Yeah,
He does, absolutely.
That's what struck me too. Yeah,
He brings a certain name recognition, exciting to watch, all that kind of stuff. Which is kind of what they're
personality profile as well.
Personality profile for sure. And to be honest, you turn on the PGA Tour of a standard week, there's a real deficit of personality. So it's not a terrible philosophy either.
I was saying to you earlier about Charles Barkley. He was on the Dan Patrick show. Well rumoured that they're seeking to get him on board as an analyst as well.
Yeah.
And he was saying, I make in and around 20 million. And Dan Patrick says, and what did you say to Live Golf? And he's like, triple it. So if they triple that, he's on his way.
Why would they want him on their golf commentary though?
Charles Barkley?
Yeah.
Well, he's the #1 sports analyst in America.
No, I get that.
And he likes a bit of golf.
But that is it.
That is literally
he's
it.
like renowned from the worst golf swing in the world.
Well, he was
likes
actually
a bit of golf.
Himself and Michael Jordan famously used to play golf, and tit for tat, very good, both very good. Then he got the yips, and that's been it. He's got like a hitch in his swing or something.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
he's sorted it out now a bit. But I know I get all that, and he did a few of those Tiger versus Phil the matches, and was very funny.
Yeah,
but
like after a couple of weeks of serious tournaments, you might find it a bit.
Your jealousy is showing here, Joe. Something fierce.
I just think there might have been a broadcaster who really loves their golf who might have been picked ahead of Barkley. That's all I'm saying. Available.
60 million float your boat, Joe.
Oh man.
I hear you're next on the list after Barkley, though.
Yeah. So there we go. They're at Trump Bedminster this week, actually, just to really up the feel good about the whole live golf situation. Fellas, we are out of time. Richie McCormack, thank you.
Nice and gents.
Ronan Mullen, thank you.
Cheers, Joe.